Every police officer is required by law to record your race on a traffic ticket to the best of their ability. It's supposed to help prevent racial profiling. But a 6-month KXAN investigation by our Brian Collister reveals the state's top law enforcement agency may not be following that law.
Richard Kaitsung Chang got a traffic ticket in Austin from a DPS trooper last April.
I was shocked.
Shocked by the race the trooper put down on his citation. He listed Chang as white instead of Asian.
It's almost incomprehensible that I could be mistaken for a white male because I don't look anything like a white male.
And neither do these other minority drivers put down as white by DPS troopers. We uncovered the problem by digging through millions of traffic citations and arrests by troopers since 2010. That's how we found this dash cam video of Dominique Deshawn McGrew being arrested last April during a traffic stop near Victoria. Instead of putting him down as black, the trooper writes down McGrew's race on this traffic citation as white. The race of everyone pulled over and ticketed or arrested by troopers is to be collected and made public. Accuracy in that data is important to those who police the police.
Well, I think that there could be accidents every now and then, but the sheer number of the reports that you've found where it looks like people who are not white are being classified as white means that there's something else going on here.
But the majority of cases where we found inaccurate race on a traffic ticket involve Hispanic drivers. Our findings have one state senator saying DPS is playing games with its racial profiling records. And coming up tonight at 10, Shannon, hear from the director of the DPS on what we uncovered and what his officers are doing.
When you're pulled over on Texas highways, troopers record your race on your ticket. It's required by law to show whether the Department of Public Safety is racially profiling.
But tonight, KXAN investigator Brian Collister uncovers troopers are not always following that law during traffic stops.
Robert and Shannon, DPS calls itself an elite and highly trained force. So how can troopers get something so obvious so wrong? A DPS trooper, siren blaring, coming up fast. He pulls over this driver for speeding last May. Pastor Gonzalez Sosa only speaks Spanish, tells the trooper he's from Mexico. But guess what race the trooper, who's Hispanic and also speaking Spanish, marks down on Sosa's ticket? White. The same thing happened to Sergio Raul Mejia when he got a ticket this May in Georgetown. The trooper reported Mejia as white.
Well, that's bad. I'm Hispanic. He was not supposed to fool white people.
You don't think you look white?
No.
Both of you drinking?
In every traffic stop, state law requires peace officers determine the driver's race to the best of their ability and document it. The law is very clear. Race and ethnicity are treated the same. Troopers must pick from these categories, which include both white and Hispanic. But we've discovered examples of race recorded incorrectly after we poured through millions of DPS traffic citation records. Like these drivers seen on dashcam video, all Hispanic, including David Ramirez Bautista, speaking to a trooper who apparently doesn't understand Spanish. There's Antonio Tovar Mendez, Jose Luis Ramirez, and Jose Palacios Jr., all of them reported by DPS to the state as white.
There's something else going on here.
We showed the data to Professor Ranjana Natarajan, who directs the Civil Rights Clinic at the University of Texas School of Law. The professor says what we've uncovered reveals DPS racial profiling statistics are unreliable.
It's very disturbing because what it shows is that there either seems to be complete lack of training on the part of DPS officers and other law enforcement officers about how to report people's race, or that there's deliberate sort of, trying to not follow the policy.
And we also found this. The most common names of drivers stopped and recorded as white by DPS after Smith is Garcia, Martinez, Hernandez, Gonzalez, and Rodriguez. Nearly 2 million drivers with Hispanic names marked as white. One Rodriguez who's expressed concerns with DPS, State Senator Jose Rodriguez of El Paso.
Yeah, Rodriguez, Garcia, Martinez, Gonzalez, Lopez, Garza, Ramirez. You know, we've got to stop playing these kinds of games. I mean, people want to know, why are Hispanics being singled out? That's a simple question, and you can't go around saying, well, they're whites.
DPS statistics show it's pulled over an increasingly disproportionate number of Hispanic drivers over the years. And our investigation suggests that number may actually be much higher than what the agency is reporting.
I mean, there's got to be some explanation for that.
When Senator Rodriguez demanded an explanation, the DPS director, Stephen McCraw, sent this letter claiming troopers received additional training on the collection of racial profiling data, which emphasized the importance of accurately reporting the race and ethnicity.
Brian Collister, I'm with KXAN. How are you?
DPS declined when we asked to interview McCraw, so we caught up with him at a meeting of the state's Public Safety Commission, which oversees DPS.
Your point could be valid.
McCraw blames a flaw in their computer system, but acknowledges it's up to his troopers to accurately report race.
So, with the troopers making the determination, why are still so many being put down as white?
Why? I don't know that is. We need to look at the data. If it is, it is. We'll make adjustments. I don't doubt that there may be mistakes made on occasion, but I don't know the details of that until I see the data and I sit down with my experts. I'd like to see how wrong we are.
Now, because of our investigation, DPS tells us it will enhance the precision of this important reporting requirement. They're also exploring possible fixes to their computer system. Now, we put DPS's full statement and the entire interview with the director on our website for everyone to look at.
Brian, you mentioned that computer flaw. Did you ever see any white people marked down incorrectly?
We did look for that. Didn't find a single example.
Very interesting, Brian. Thank you very much. Online now at KXAN.com, our special web feature. Check out video extras from police dash cameras so you can see the traffic stops for yourself. Plus, photos of minorities wrongly ticketed as white. And our illustrative data element showing just how many drivers are wrapped up in this problem. It's all in this story in the investigative section of KXAN.com. Then join us on air for KXAN News Sunday after the game when our investigation continues. What we found statewide is spilling into city police departments, including Austin.
If you can't tell the difference between a black, a white, Hispanic, and an Asian, a male, and a female, you probably shouldn't be a cop.
How the police chief is taking action after our discovery.
The police chief is ordering a review of his department's collection of traffic citation data. This all comes at a time when many minorities in Austin say something finally needs to change.
I can't change my color. I was born this way. And other black people can't change their color either. They're just being profiled for no reason. I'm tired of it.
Anger and frustration.
My fear is that when I get in my car and drive to my job, that I will be stopped by the police.
Gonna get a few tickets, okay?
The fear of racial profiling by police is very real for many in Austin, including Danielle Yanis.
I'm a Chicano.
Yanis believes Austin officers pulled him over last year because he's Hispanic.
Within 5 minutes, there were 4 other cars, and I had 8 policemen surrounding me.
On his ticket for expired registration and inspection, police wrote down his race, which is required by law and meant to prevent racial profiling. But Yanis never noticed.
Does that say white?
Yes.
Well, I didn't even notice.
They put you down as white.
So you got a citation for me. I didn't even notice that. That is, well, there you go. What can I tell you? It's insidious.
It didn't just happen once, but twice. Again in 2012, when another officer marked him down as white.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I guess I must be white. Jeez.
The longtime Austin activist complained about his most recent stop to the city's Human Rights Commission while discussing training and policies on racial profiling.
I can tell you that I lived in West Austin for 22 years, and that never happened.
During that same meeting, the head of APD's training academy said this.
We very accurately document every stop and every contact with the public.
But that's not what we found. KXAN uncovered case after case of Austin officers ticketing minority drivers incorrectly, marking them down as white, when as you can see, they're clearly not. We analyzed more than 600,000 tickets from the last 5 years. We identified and verified Drivers who are Hispanic, Asian, and Black recorded in APD's own racial profiling data as white, like Monique Weedle, Ebony Stearns, Monique Verse, and Eric Pham, each marked down by an officer as white. And there's Darren Chung.
It's just surprising. I mean, I'm not white, so it's just a surprise.
His ticket from running a red light this year says he's white too.
I'm half Indian, quarter black, quarter Chinese.
Are you white?
Not white, no.
506 traffic.
In every traffic stop, state law requires peace officers determine the driver's race to the best of their ability and document it. The law is very clear. Race and ethnicity are treated the same.
The expectation is that our people honestly fill out the documentation.
By law, APD Chief Art Acevedo delivers an annual report on his department's racial profiling data to the City Council. It's based on what officers write down at each traffic stop.
This one's totally wrong. Zavala, I would say, is wrong. Pham, Trank, no, that's definitely wrong.
Sometimes your officers just get it wrong.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know. I can't answer that.
What concerns the chief the most is our list showing thousands with Hispanic names listed by his officers as white.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's problematic. And it gives me some pause to question why we're having that many that are coming up being counted as white. That's a problem. So I have to look at, is it a policy issue? Is it a training issue? Or is it a data input issue? Or is it people not doing the right thing?
If the data is incorrect or is being implemented incorrectly, then it's essentially it's not good.
We shared our findings with Texas State professor Scott Bowman, who teaches a course in racial profiling.
How do you make sure that it's accurate and just?
Bowman doesn't know whether officers are deliberately skewing the data or possibly just trying to protect their jobs.
Rather than to have to take additional training or lose your job even, you can just simply check an alternate box and normally nobody would be the wiser.
We check to see whether who officers pull over is part of their evaluations, and it's not.
I believe that the majority of people, again, because we have hundreds of thousands of contacts a year, are accurately and honestly reporting data. Having said that, I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't people that out of either laziness, not caring, or intentionally putting down inaccurate information.
Because of what we exposed, the heads of the Department of Public Safety and Austin Police both say they are looking into this inaccurate reporting. New tonight, KXAN investigator Brian Collister asks those representing officers on the street why this is happening.
A DPS trooper pulled over Jose Ignacio Gutierrez last May for speeding in San Marcos. When asked where he was headed, Gutierrez said, taking his parents to Mexico.
So what's the hurry, man? We have my grandma passed away in Mexico, so we're heading over to Mexico right now.
But instead of putting him down as Hispanic on the ticket, the trooper reported his race to the state as white. Some experts think that's not a coincidence.
Do you think this is deliberate?
I don't believe that it's malicious in the sense of trying to target large numbers of minorities and hide it. But I do think that there may be a kind of individualized deliberate attempt by officers to kind of protect and cover the frequency of their stops.
Our investigation found troopers inaccurately recording the race of large numbers of minority drivers, mostly Hispanic, as white. Experts say DPS traffic stop data reveals racial profiling reports are likely flawed. The agency blames the problem on a computer issue, but admits troopers are the ones trained to determine the race they record.
I just felt embarrassed, but then I thought, wow, we can fix that.
Sergeant Gary Chandler is president of the DPS Officers Association, which represents troopers.
I could just imagine the public was appalled to think that a police officer couldn't tell what race someone was. But I think if they accept the fact that it was a computer programming issue and that it could be fixed instantly.
Do you think that the officers do this deliberately to sort of water down the numbers of who they pull over?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because when the trooper's out there doing his job, I can speak for DPS, they're looking for a violation, the vehicle that makes the violation. And when they pull that vehicle over, whatever human being is driving it is irrelevant.
We also found the same inaccurate reporting from Austin police officers.
I think they've been put into a situation where they haven't been trained on it, and two, sometimes you just can't tell.
Detective Ken Cassidy heads up the Austin Police Association. Could it be that they're doing it intentionally to cover up who they're stopping?
You know, you never know. I mean, people do things for weird reasons or wrong reasons. I can't say whether they are or they're not, and I'd be disappointed if they were.
Now, we've also received questions about the distinction between race and ethnicity. Bottom line, these are the options available to law enforcement whenever they pull over a driver. White and Hispanic are both listed.
That state lawmaker will hold a hearing into the problem at DPS.
You're in my committee, sir.
State Representative Garnet Coleman grills the head of DPS in a heated hearing this summer. The chairman of the House Committee on County Affairs and other lawmakers peppered Director Stephen McCraw.
Well, you can step on out now.
For details on the controversial traffic stop of Sandra Bland in Waller County, and demanded answers about the agency's racial profiling, policies, and statistics.
Puedo verificar esa información, okay?
So Representative Coleman was stunned when we showed him this DPS dash cam video from our investigation.
When you see that video, what race is that motorist?
Oh, he's definitely Latino.
No, he's white.
Really?
Coleman says he can't believe this trooper wrote down this driver's race as white on the ticket.
Wow.
Before we even shared our findings with him, Coleman was critical of the fact that DPS racial data shows a huge spike in troopers stopping Hispanic drivers. We showed him how troopers are recording minorities, mostly Hispanic, as white.
It's absolutely amazing. So the numbers are even higher. There are more stops than reported of Latinos based on this data, and they're hidden under stops by identifying those individuals as white.
What do you think of that?
I don't think that's right. I think that makes this even worse.
So because of our investigation, Coleman has called a special hearing of his committee next week. He plans to ask DPS how it can have a computer system with no clear or simple way to record someone's race as Hispanic.
Ask DPS under oath. Well, how can this not be the case? So they can say what they want to say, and if they don't want to come, I'll just subpoena them.
DPS denies it racially profiles and says it's looking into fixes for the problems we uncovered.
Welcome back to this special edition of State of Texas In Depth. We invited DPS Director Stephen McCraw to join our roundtable today, but his office declined twice. Austin's Police Chief Art Acevedo accepted our invitation, as did Professor Ranjana Natarajan, the director of the Civil Rights Clinic at the University of Texas, and our own Brian Collister. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
So you've been talking about some changes that you're looking to make, possible, review after Brian's report. Can you kind of give us an update where you're at with that?
Well, we have secured an actual expert to come into our department out of the University of Texas in Arlington, and they're going to audit our process, our data, our training, the supervisory part, everything from A to Z to ensure that A, we are practicing best practices, and B, to identify if we have a problem or is it an isolated issue. So I look forward to that. We plan on putting together training. We have to adapt policies, procedures. That's exactly what we'll do. The person responsible for the entire operation that we call the Austin Police Department is me. And I can assure you that I really don't care what people think we should do. We're going to do the right thing. And when we're done, we're going to report back. So when we run the data, if it's changed, we're going to report that back. We're going to make sure people know what the correct data is, and we're going to change our process to ensure that we are auditing, doing the spot checking on a regular basis, so our folks know that, if it's measured but it's not checked, then it's no good. So we're not going to measure the data by capturing it. We're going to check it to make sure it's accurate. And at the end of the day, I really believe the majority of the officers are doing the right things. I believe that some of these are just mistakes when you draw it down. But when we compare people, they better not be out in left field where, they stop 100 African Americans and 90% of them are white. That'd be a problem.
The director of the Texas Department of Public Safety admits for the first time what a KXAN investigation uncovered is right. His troopers have been wrongly recording the races of minority drivers, mostly Hispanic, during traffic stops.
Today, state lawmakers grilled the head of DPS because of our reports, and our investigator Brian Collister was there to follow up as promised.
The director told lawmakers DPS cannot immediately fix a problem with the in-car computer system used by troopers. So starting today, troopers will now ask every single driver they pull over to tell them their race, so it can be recorded correctly on their citations.
You were right, and we were wrong.
The head of DPS finally admits what KXAN uncovered his troopers doing is true. For years, they've been wrongly recording large numbers of Hispanic drivers as white. Today's admission didn't sit well with lawmakers who've already been concerned with the dramatic increase in Hispanics being stopped.
The number of people who are stopped that are been coded incorrectly, that means we're understating the percentage because they're not in the equation.
What we can do better, and what we should have been doing better, is collect the data accurately as it relates to Hispanics. Plain and simple, guilty, and that should have been done better, and we've got an obligation to fix that.
The fix? Troopers will now ask every driver they pull over to tell them their race so it can be properly reported to the state, as required by the law aiming to prevent racial profiling.
So when does the change take place for DPS?
Well, internally, the change takes place, effective today. We just we'll change our tactics statewide in terms of how we, engage, violators on the side of the road.
Although DPS says it's known about the problem for years, McCraw is just now telling lawmakers about it and taking responsibility after our investigation.
I can assure you that this is really a leadership issue. It's not a trooper issue.
But while also admitting their racial profiling statistics are flawed, McCraw also claimed the agency's numbers prove his troopers don't racially profile.
False numbers, untrue. We can't believe them any longer.
That didn't sit well with the only Hispanic on the committee.
He couldn't simply state that, you're right, I can't use this information to defend myself anymore. The math doesn't lie. 2 and 2 is always 4. And right now, 2 and 2 is an unknown based upon the information we got today.
DPS Director McCraw said today he would not bring in an outside expert to help fix the problem. But after the meeting, Representative Ramiro told me he's now going to request DPS and the Public Safety Commission that oversees the agency to hire an independent outside expert to audit DPS's collection of racial profiling data.
Another major breakdown in how Austin police collects information showing the race of those they ticket or arrest. When a KXAN investigation uncovered last month how officers are recording the wrong race of minority drivers, Chief Art Acevedo immediately ordered an independent review, which is now underway. And now KXAN investigator Brian Collister has discovered another big problem within APD.
Don't look Chinese, but I wouldn't think white, no.
Darren Chung is not white.
Top 6 traffic.
And neither are thousands of other minority motorists we discovered whose race was inaccurately reported by APD officers. And we've now discovered APD is also not reporting everything the law requires in its annual reports. Just look at this email we obtained from last July in which an APD traffic analyst writes to the department's research and planning manager. It's about their racial profiling records. She says, our data is so poor that we risk opening ourselves up for scrutiny on our methodology. The analyst goes on to point out that they're not reporting all motor vehicle stops, which is required by law.
When I first saw that email, I'm like, wait a minute. When you look at it, it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Acevedo today told us he didn't know his staff already knew about problems until we asked about the email, which we got recently through an open records request.
And then when you delve deeper into it, it's just people that are really concerned and showing a concern to make sure we're getting it right.
So because of our investigation, Acevedo recently hired Dr. Alex Del Carmen, the state's leading expert on the racial profiling law, to audit his department.
I was pleased to hear from Chief Acevedo that he wanted to tackle this issue when you brought it up to his attention.
Del Carmen literally wrote the book on racial profiling and works for the state, training all police chiefs on the requirements of the statute. He's currently reviewing how APD collects racial data and what it must do to follow the law.
This is huge. This is probably one of the most important things that we can do for our communities, is to ensure that everyone is adhering to what our legislators have required them to do.
Dr. Del Carmen will have his final report to Chief Acevedo this week. When it's finished, we'll bring you the results.
The Department of Public Safety has a zero tolerance for racial profiling.
After we uncovered DPS troopers wrongly recording the race of Hispanic drivers, we have learned the head of the state's largest law enforcement agency is finally asking for help from outside experts to evaluate traffic stop data and to make recommendations for improvements.
Our Brian Collister was at DPS headquarters today for an update on the fallout from his ongoing investigation.
We're looking into third-party experts.
Before our investigation into DPS aired, Public Safety Commission Chairwoman Cindy Leon told KXAN that commissioners were not aware of any systemic issues related to racial profiling at the department. Now that they are aware, Leon is supporting the director, requiring troopers to ask drivers their race during traffic stops.
What have you told the director about what he needs to do to get this right?
Well, we need to get the data correct, number one. And he took action as a result of all of this discussion, which I think is an appropriate one.
I don't buy that this is, in fact, a better way of being able to capture better data.
But Dr. Alex Del Carmen, the state's leading expert on the racial profiling law, does not think the director's solution to the problem is appropriate and could result in costly lawsuits.
Whatever enforceable action takes place right after that question has been asked can always translate or formulate to a complaint that the reason why the trooper enforced the law at that point is due to a confirmation that that individual suspect was in fact a minority.
The Tarleton State professor trains Texas police chiefs on how to follow the state racial profiling law. He's offered his help to DPS.
We'll absolutely look at him, and we'll look at a lot of other people who can help us to move forward on this issue.
The DPS director today told commissioners the agency's top lawyer has determined it is in compliance with the requirements of the state's racial profiling law. Dr. Del Carmen says that based on our reporting, DPS is not complying with the law.
And you told us earlier this week that Del Carmen is working with the Austin Police Department on this very same thing.
Right, we found the same thing at APD. He's been in there auditing the agency and should have his final report in the next few days.
The Texas Department of Public Safety is doing an about-face when it comes to how troopers are collecting racial profiling records.
The change comes after a KXAN investigation when the head of the state's biggest law enforcement agency ordered troopers to ask drivers to identify their own race during traffic stops. Brian Collister is here with the latest developments in this ongoing investigation. Brian.
Robert and Shannon, in this memo sent today to all Texas Highway Patrol personnel, Director Stephen McGraw instructs troopers to stop doing what he first told them to do back on November the 18th, asking drivers their race. McGraw initially ordered troopers to ask in response to our uncovering officers inaccurately recording the race of a large number of Hispanic drivers as white. But the state's leading expert in racial profiling law criticized the move, saying it could lead to costly lawsuits and put officers in a difficult position. And that's apparently exactly what happened. I spoke today to the head of the Department of Public Safety Officers Association by phone, and this is what he told me. Quote, the troopers did what the director said, but it just didn't go very smoothly. Some people got offended, and it put the trooper in a bad situation. DPS blames a flaw in their computer system for the inaccurate reporting we uncovered. Today, the new directives order troopers to record what they believe is the race of the driver, and each motorist will then have the chance to object to the category selected when they sign the actual citation. And Robert and Shannon, DPS also announced today in this directive that they will now institute some new audit procedures to make sure this racial data is accurate.
Okay, Brian, thanks so much. And you can see Brian's full investigation online right now at kxan.com. Just click on the Investigations tab at the top of the screen.